Good morning, everybody. We're going to wait. Welcome to our seminar, Hawaiian Telcom University. And we're just going to wait for a few minutes, wait for everybody to join. Thank you. Thank you for joining in today. So let's just wait a couple minutes. For those who just hopped on, you're in Securing the New Normal, Cybersecurity in 2021, Hawaiian Telcom University. We'll just wait a minute or two just to let everybody join us. Okay, we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Hawaiian Telcom University, the first event for 2021. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm Phyllis Freitas, Director of Sales of CBTS Hawaiian Telcom. So just to be sure you're in the right spot, it's Cybersecurity in 2021, Securing the New Normal. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping. We really want this discussion today to be interactive with our speakers and you. And we really appreciate all of you joining us, taking time out of your busy schedule. So throughout the discussion today, please don't hesitate to submit a question at any time. There is a Q&A panel. Please type your question and we will try to address it throughout the discussion. However, if we don't get through it during the discussion, we'll make sure we get to it toward the end. And we have a lot of good information to share with you today, so we hope you can stay until the end. And of course, at the end, we have a lucky drawing. And we also have a very special offer that we will be sharing with you. Hawaiian Telcom, CBTS Hawaiian Telcom. We're the leading technology provider that delivers networking, security, cloud, infrastructure, and communications, and consulting solutions to clients across North America. CBTS launched the Hawaii location with Hawaiian Telcom last January. The technical expertise of CBTS Hawaii, together with the local sales and support teams and our advanced technology solutions, is a powerful combination. Our mission is to help local businesses implement innovative, transformative technologies that drive desired outcomes. Hawaiian Telcom has been offering managed security services locally since 2010. Our security practice is focused on providing the hands-on support local businesses need. Although we started off small, our dedicated security team has grown tremendously over the years, allowing us to expand the types of services we can offer. In addition to our partnership with leading firewall and security partners, we help our customers protect against attacks, monitoring security threats, as well as provide compliance consulting services to help sort out the complex requirements of PCI and NIST compliance. Cybersecurity is a hot topic and an important consideration that every business needs to be aware of. Of course, COVID-19 has brought a lot of changes in how business operate, as many of us have had to transition to online. Whether it was launching an online storefront, video conferencing online, or accessing files from home, we've had to lean even more on the internet, which comes with its share of security risks. We are lucky today to have our partners from Fortinet, a leading cybersecurity company. They are here with us to talk about current cybersecurity trends that they are seeing and things businesses can do to protect themselves. So from Fortinet today, we have Pete Lujan. Pete has been in the field of cybersecurity for over 25 years. He has held multiple positions to include cyber threat intelligence and analyst, red team operator, defensive cyber operations chief, and information system security manager. For the past 5+ years, he has worked with Fortinet as a senior security systems engineer holding specializations in various threat landscapes. He also serves as a mentor for the Fortinet Veterans Program. Also joining us from Fortinet is Teresa Wang. Teresa attributes her 20+ years longevity and success in business development within tech to the strength of relationships forged with her customers. She's held various roles providing enterprise network enablement solutions, and for the past 5 years, she has worked with Fortinet as a senior security. I beg your pardon. For the I'm sorry. For the she has held various roles providing enterprise network enablement solutions, and for the past 5 years with an emphasis on cybersecurity. Rounding out our presenters today is CBTS Hawaiian Telcom's Senior Manager for Services Engineering, Evan Horton. Evan has extensive experience in the security, networking, and service administration fields. He works with our customers every day here in Hawaii. So we're about ready to get started. So if you joined a little late or while I was presenting, talking about CBTS Hawaiian Telcom or our presenters, please, we want to be sure this is interactive. There's a Q&A panel. Please enter your questions so we can address it throughout the presentation. And if not, we will definitely address it at the end of the session. And I think we're ready. So Teresa, will you take it away?
Thank you, Phyllis. And I just want to make sure everybody can hear me good. Yeah? Pete and I are really grateful to have the opportunity and share this event with CBTS Hawaiian Telcom. In fact, honestly, we'd prefer to be there, wouldn't we, Pete? But, you know, precisely because of today's events, the focus is remote workforce because specifically of the COVID-19 lockdown, right? So with that, I thought it would be helpful to see a show of hands who's familiar with Fortinet. And since I can't see your hands, I'm going to have to tell you, okay? This is our vanity slide, but I'm just going to call attention to a few main points. So first and foremost, Fortinet has just enjoyed over 20 years, established in 2000 rather, okay? So really, what am I saying? Established expertise in what was before network security and now cybersecurity, okay? Calling attention to the number of patents. Why? Because in this industry, and particularly in cybersecurity, right, we're not going to rest on our laurels. We will continually reinvest because ultimately Fortinet is highly and widely regarded as an engineering firm. So over 700 patents, as you can see, we already have a couple of hundred already pending, okay? But why would you care? Because it results in having our solutions proliferated throughout the world so that every single one of these customers that have our solution is actually a sensor. Everybody will benefit from that because if we catch something and we identify it and we remediate it, it's immediately shared throughout the realm, right? So that's very impactful, okay? Speed is everything. And most importantly too, we actually have a vast portfolio of solutions. So ranging not just from on-premise solution, but also the cloud. We now are very much employing AI. That's very exciting. And so just want to at least give you a little context of who Fortinet is and also our expertise and established credentials, okay? So truly, we are among and within these various industries, verticals. I'm very certain that many of you in the audience, participants, are represented in these industries. And of course, telecom. CBTS Hawaiian Telcom is our strategic partner, okay? But look, Fortinet is not a household name. And while we shared our vanity slide, we're really proud of the fact that Gartner has actually, for over a decade, most recently, the 11th year in a row, has actually positioned Fortinet in the exalted, leadership cybersecurity section, which is called the Magic Quadrant. And we are more than happy to provide you the report should you wish to, get into more detail. And I definitely want to call attention, folks, to on your screen, there's actually a resource for downloadables, okay? But definitely come to us if you would like to have a copy of this report, okay? We'll send you the link. So, COVID-19 lockdown, remote workforce. We're here to share with you our threat observations in the past year. Because why? Well, 2020 really saw a huge disruption in how we work. Fortinet publishes semi-annually the Global Threat Landscape Report. Okay, you will be able to find that again in the section that I had informed earlier. And that is where you can get the download directly, okay, from this website. Just a quick rundown of what we're going to be sharing, because we do believe awareness is key, right? So right now we know that last year, coronavirus, COVID-19 was rampant. Truly, it appears to be likely throughout 2021, right? It's a protracted process, and even getting back, having the workforce getting back to on-site is still going to take a little time. But the reality is it's really permanently changed the landscape and how we work, right? So we're going to also address the battle for the browser and exploits. So really, you've heard, don't click on that or be careful, just be aware that a lot of the remote workforce and greater reliance on your technology is actually also going to create more vulnerabilities, right? What to secure? The perimeter is truly no longer at the office, no longer at just, what you perceive as workspace tools. Now it's extended beyond into your home, right? Other personal space. And the ransomware activities is only increasing. I used to say it's like a sport, it's a business. So we want to share, the proliferation of that. And finally, lastly, but absolutely not leastly, web security, because let's face it too, we're becoming increasingly more reliant upon web tools, web access, pretty much web everything, right? So we're going to have that covered. And I'm really happy to say that my colleague, Pete Lujan, is going to expand on those topics. But first, before I turn it over to him, really want you folks to just take a look at this slide. Take a look at the increase, as well as also the various types, right, of just threats, activities, and automation, right? Very scary. But this is to also lend some reassurance that there is a means to address these. Okay. We talked about, there's really a blur between workspace, home space, personal space, right? But in all reality too, within the framework of cybersecurity, it's no longer just at the edge, right? People, again, reliant upon accessing cloud solutions, apps, services, etc., even internally, right? Because, exfiltration is a big, big deal now. So wanted you to also have a look at where and how you can manage risk, mitigate risk, and also remediate using AI. Okay, now I can turn it over to Pete Lujan, who's going to roll up his sleeves and get into detail and expand upon many of these topics that we just shared. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Teresa. Mike good? You guys can hear me? Okay. Yeah, so talking about what Teresa brought up, the whole event with COVID-19, work from home, and all the changes that happened drastically and very fast last year in 2020. We take it back to 2019, and coming from a security provider for many organizations, the topic in the conversation was really going towards the digital transformation and bringing services to the cloud, providing more security, doing things that weren't traditional, just network availability. But now that we're talking network availability and security, and making sure that those pieces all work together. And then COVID-19 happened, and that challenge, that conversation wasn't just who's going to make that decision and when's it going to happen. COVID-19 took over that conversation, and they made the changes for everybody, and it was a worldwide, global change that everyone just followed. everybody work from home, everybody VPN in, and everybody use whatever sources you have, because even if we have the money, we don't have the time and resources to purchase new gear now and deliver it. So everyone worked with whatever they had available, and there was no change. There was no plan in place for many companies. Some customers may have had a plan in place for a major disaster, earthquake recovery, tsunami disaster recovery instances, and maybe this was the perfect time to actually test it out. But it wasn't because you planned it. COVID-19 said you were going to do it today, and it happened. So we noticed, not only the fact that COVID-19 and a major issue, security issue, a personal issue, global pandemic was occurring, and people were worried about it. But you notice that even the trends within Google showing that there was a high uptake of what is COVID-19 on Google searches on the internet. At the same time that people were searching for what is COVID-19, how do I protect myself? Am I going to die? How much toilet paper do I really need? There was issues at the same time. There was indications of compromise were being identified across the globe, because the bad guys identified very quickly that things are changing. Security is going to be dropping. People aren't going to be worried about monitoring who's accessing what, because you're not going to be able to tell anymore. It's just going to, it's the way to, how can they exploit it? And it became very, very immediately, one of the first things I thought of wasn't, oh my gosh, it's going to be so hard for everyone to work from home. My thing is, how secure is it going to be for working from home? You could easily see it wasn't just the average hacker or the kiddie script or somebody just thinking they wanted to go ahead and compromise and cause havoc and whatnot. But it was a very common scenario right here, throwing phishing emails out. If you can see the one from North Korea, they sent out one that was coming from the Center for Public Health of the Center Ministry of Health of Ukraine. That one, as well as the North Korea one. These ones were going after people's, what they were concerned with, actual concerns of today. And you're not going to be really. This isn't the email from sending somebody some prince in Africa some money. This was legitimate. Hey, here's something from the Public Health. Click on this. These are the links to get your shots. This is your wear a mask. What you're going to do. The requirements. Anybody that received this in that area will probably click on it, and I guarantee caused a lot of issues for businesses. Evan, did you have anything from that you noticed in Hawaii?
I sure did, Pete. Thanks for asking. So just to jump back a little bit, everybody's been talking about digital transformations, and from that first slide, everybody's been pushing it, whether it's the C-suite or the business unit, and then absolutely from Pete, what you're saying, right? Corona just said, "Hey, guess what? We're all digitally transforming, and we're doing it right now, this weekend, right?" And we saw that at Hawaiian Tel. Hawaiian Tel is a 138-year-old company. And had you asked me a year ago if I'd be sitting at home in my office working every day, I would have said, maybe in 20 years. Like in large organizations, things move slowly. That's just kind of the way it is. And we pivoted in less than 3 weeks. It was amazing. So with that comes the concern of what's our risk profile? How does that change? And a lot of that is what we want to talk about here is understanding how that risk has changed for these organizations and getting you thinking about what is your how big is your footprint for your organization, where is your important data, and how does that impact your business. Thanks, Pete. Mm-hmm.
So going back to the fact of people working from home, what did that really do for the bad guys? So what did that do for any security engineer or even the IT guy that might not have really cared about security at one point in time? It had a cause concern. Looking at the global antivirus detections across the globe, the top 10 vectors for the first 6 months of 2020, you're going to notice that within 2020, in January, there's some vulnerabilities that were being exploited. But as soon as people started going home, February, March, April timeframe, if you notice, the CVE 2017 went from basically the seventh ranked value up to number 1, and it stayed there, and it's still there right now as one of the top 5. And what is that? That's a Microsoft endpoint vulnerability. It's been available for patches since 2017. Windows 7, Windows 10, Office products. It's definitely something that was lower. It was still available because not all companies keep up to date on their patching. You got to, it's understandable, but almost nobody at home keeps up to date with patching. That's guaranteed. So the fact that now everyone was working from home and having the vulnerabilities available, they didn't have to recreate the wheel and go ahead and try to use new high sophisticated exploits to try to bypass security products. They just had to get through somebody's phone, somebody's computer, somebody's Pirate Bay down, their kids downloading a video, illegal or not, whatever you want to call it. But whatever was being done from a person's personal computer. At least 75% of the endpoints that are being accessing your networks weren't being monitored or managed. So the bad guys knew this, and the good guys were concerned with this, hopefully. And you can see from the statistics of 2020, typically from 2012 to about 2019, when bad guys started really forming sharing their topics, sharing their solutions, going after threats, and hitting vulnerabilities on a common pace. Those were all, what did we find today? How do we sell it? How do we exploit it before it gets patched? And let's just focus on trying to get those new ones, because some of the old stuff is no longer valid. Come 2020, only 20% of the vulnerabilities that were exploitable were even being used. The other 80% of exploits being used in 2020 were exploits from previous years. And why is that? Is because they weren't being patched. You can't rely on your computers at home being patched. Most people don't have a brand new computer with the newest updates and we're monitoring stuff. So, that's where we're looking at a lot of the issues. These trends are really showing the value of where these bad guys are going. Into some of these other that was antivirus. Now we're looking at intrusion prevention systems. What are we detecting globally? What is being detected globally? And again, these things changed from January to June. There was a different level of what was being exploited. For example, this top one, which was the let me pull that one up. Well, this top one was actually the jaws.dvr vulnerability. And that exploit that was happening was giving you a right based off of username and admin privileges and some other exploits that were available, was actually going and taking over full control of the system. Well, what uses JAWS DVR? I looked it up. I wanted to find out how I can exploit it. And it was this CCTV controller. Well, that's how common is that? Is that one specific controller that's really vulnerable? I went to go look it up on eBay. I couldn't even buy it. It's out of stock because it's so heavily used, which is why it's the number one exploited threat right now on IPS, because people know that that's being used and is monitoring systems, whether it be your home, whether it be your business, whether it be a storage unit, or whatever the case is. This is a highly prevalent CCT device that's being used. So I said, okay, well, let me check on that. Let me see what the next one is. Well, the next one is this Netgear N150 November 150 wireless router DSO modem. Same thing. Can't even buy it. It's out of stock. It's so heavily prevalent across the globe that people are using it, and it's exploitable and it's being exploited. So knowing that you have that anything with the JAWS.DVR functionality or this wired Netgear, you need these Netgear routers. It's easily you should probably be pretty sure that someone's monitoring your stuff, has full access to that, unless you've taken the precautions, change your password, change your admin credentials, and you're doing some type of monitoring on your home networks. Moving forward go ahead, Devin.
Oh yeah. So I was just gonna to touch on this a little bit. Pete uses some excellent language, and I just when I'm communicating with customers, I like to simplify it quite a bit. Specifically, endpoints. We're talking about workstations. We're talking about phones. We're talking about laptops. In some cases, like Pete was talking about, that's devices that are either owned by the employee specifically or owned by the business, and they're still bringing it home. I really love the comparison of it's just like a fleet of vehicles. If you have a fleet of vehicles because you do deliveries, or the armored car company or whatever you might use, there's a set cost for securing those vehicles, for maintaining those vehicles, for keeping them up to date. And you don't necessarily let all of your employees drive them home and park them wherever they live. But that's exactly what we're doing with all of our businesses, taking those things home. And there's no 24/7 CCTV security on their lot at home, in their driveway or their garage. And now it's not just whatever consumer goods they have on hand that are stored in that car. It's could be the keys to your entire business. It could be your accountant. It could be anybody like that. I don't want to scare anybody too much, but that's the level of access into your networks that bringing the business home does. And that's why this needs to be thought through pretty heavily, because to the point of this Netgear wireless router is sold out, I guarantee you most of the home users that went and bought whatever they needed to get business done didn't immediately harden that device to CIS top 20 standards, specifically so they don't get broken into. We're doing whatever we can to get business running, and that's okay. But now that we've been in this situation for a while, it's time to think through how do we do let's do the basics. Let's secure it. Let's use good passwords. Let's monitor if we can. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on down the path, the next top 5 or 6 exploits identified across the globe were all PHP vulnerabilities. What's PHP? It's a server language that really is able to, once controlled, you can grab anything, grab documents, grab files, upload, download, any programming that your servers would be using could be potentially be exploitable if it's being programmed with the PHP language. And the big concern with the PHP is not that it's just a Windows vulnerability or a Java vulnerability or whatever the case is. This is utilized across almost every major operating system: Linux, Unix, HP, OpenBSD, Microsoft, Mac OS, iOS. All these software server versions actually potentially are able to run PHP. And if it is running and it's not protected, and as we're talking about right now, it's the boundary. It's not no more that and everyone accessing your servers is inside your network and they're just connecting through the LAN. Now they're going over VPN. Now they're remote accessing it. Now they're doing things from outside your boundary, accessing the services. And it's up to somebody on your teams to actually identify what's right or wrong. All right. Now, talking back to some of the stuff that everyone's talking about, specifically with everyone going home, IoT devices, heavily exploited, D-Link, Linux, Netcore, Netgear, all these different devices that are at people's homes. They don't have, potentially, they don't have the name brand, the Ciscos and the Sonic Walls and these other, Fortinets or Palo Altos. They don't have those at home. They're using whatever services that they can go to Best Buy or they can go to Fry's or they can order on Amazon and grab those and putting them up. Now, these devices potentially aren't secured. They haven't changed their passwords. And now you've got to worry about somebody with their computer, your HR rep, doing all the financials for your company, sitting at their desk behind a smart TV that has their camera hijacked because their kid was downloading a game or doing something on the internet or clicked on a link. And now, that VPN connection's secure and the traffic between the endpoint computer through that VPN to your corporate office is secured. But once it's on that screen, there's nothing stopping that D-Link router, the cameras that are monitoring their home use services, Alexa, Google, smart TVs, all these other devices that are at homes that are potentially compromised. What's stopping them from doing keystroke logging, from monitoring, listening to these conversations you're having about employees and other major corporate events? Is it being recorded by different devices in your home use? So again, those aren't purchased from a company. Those are just random devices. Who knows how old? Who knows how vulnerable? But Evan can definitely go into some of those, how to identify some of those solutions, and securities, Evan.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pete. To jump into that a little bit, Stephen Hodge actually asked, what's a good monitoring system for home networks? He says he uses a private VPN for extra layer of protection within his home network. Talking into that specifically on this slide and home networking equipment, that's a very simple question with a very large, complicated answer. And the answer that my sales team probably doesn't like me to say is the right amount of security. The question is, what are you doing? What's the level of risk to your business? And then it's just like what they tell us in the CISSP testing. You don't need to build giant castle walls if all you're doing is selling hot dogs, right? You have to have the right amount of security, unless you really love hot dogs. I see Teresa shaking her head, but it's the appropriate amount of security to understand the risk level and risk tolerance for your business. So there's lots of ways to do that, and we definitely want to get into that in the consultation that we're talking about at the end of this. But it is layers of security, Stephen. It's absolutely having as many layers of security you can, but not impeding your ability to get business done, and being aware of your situational awareness of being what's around you and what you're doing. And so what's on this slide specifically, if you've never seen Shodan or logged into Shodan before, it's a great website that just scans the internet. The guy who put it together has some really good DEF CON videos talking about how he started to do it and how ISPs are like, why are you scanning me? This seems really evil. And he's like, well, not really, but kind of. But the short version is, if you go in here and you can go and look at areas like Hawaii and say, I'd like to know all the public IPs that have an open FTP server or an open, port for a website or something. And it's a great starting point that bad guys can use to say, oh, I already know that's open. And it's also a good way for you to do a threat assessment of stuff that's open to the internet that maybe you didn't know about, because maybe you didn't have really good change management. And it's absolutely great for seeing what home users are self-hosting. That's why a lot of ISPs actually block a lot of self-hosting stuff. But anyway, that goes pretty in depth. We can talk about that quite a bit after, but just having situational awareness of what you're putting on your network and what's in there and knowing what room in the house you are in when you're conducting business is a great start. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah. All right, ransomware. It's not running away. And the reason I like the way that what that's being talked about right now is because I presented a similar scenario, similar threat brief early 2020 before Corona was an issue. And it was definitely being stated, obviously, from probably November, December of 2019, that ransomware was going away. It was declining. There was a decrease in ransomware because of the fact that people were getting better for doing with backups. People were doing better with security and making sure they were catching and preventing ransomware from encrypting their product and encrypting their services. And then if and for any success out of that required a customer to pay, typically in Bitcoin, typically over cryptocurrency, and it always required potentially FBI or somebody to be involved, and it became a lucrative business. But that was if someone paid. What they were doing in end of 2019 and 2020 was called cryptojacking, where they would take resources from your machines and they would just start mining Bitcoin. And that was a guaranteed every 6 months grabbing 1 or 2 Bitcoin. And the cost of Bitcoin now, but they were just mining cryptocurrency behind the scenes. No one was alerted. They didn't take down services. Potentially 99% of the customers that were being affected had no idea that their servers were being overrun, overclocked every night from 12 o'clock to 5 in the morning, just mining coin. They were just making money hand over fist. Now, after COVID and all the services the team is leaving, the people that were doing ransomware, the crypto jacking is still there, but the people that were slowing down on ransomware picked it back up. All the IT teams, the security teams that typically were on-prem, doing daily backups, doing offsite storage, doing all these security solutions to prevent ransomware, were no longer there. So as soon as they realized they can do ransomware, and instead of doing any forensics, getting their team on staff, getting somebody on place because no one was allowed to go into the work, they were just being paid. They were paying it out immediately just to get that key to unlock their gear to keep on working. I mean, companies, businesses are losing, going out of business left and right this year because of COVID. And that was with services uninterrupted. That was just because of people not on staff, people that they weren't able to pay for, services not being purchased. So if they lost any downtime because of any kind of ransomware, it was just pay it. We need to maintain services. So it definitely came back. Then we look at, well, do you have anything on that one before I talk about this last piece?
Yeah, the one thing I keep in mind with ransomware, and we've seen this in the state, is it's been prevalent. It still happens. You can secure everything's really well and still have somebody with the right admin access getting things crypto lockered, right? But before, when everybody was in the office, the response time was maybe a day for IT to reimage a laptop if it was just isolated to one system. Now you have people working from home, and maybe they live up on the North Shore, maybe they're in Maui, maybe they're in Molokai. The response time to get them up and working again is usually about 6 to 7 days. That's what we're seeing with some of our clients, and also with our organization ourselves, depending on where that person is and how easy it is for them to get in to get that workstation. And then we're exposing them to possible safety concerns as well. So having the right security in place to prevent crypto locker and ransomware is even more important than it was a year ago. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I've always been a heavy believer doing red teaming, being part of the phishing programs. I won't say tactics, but getting into a network, it was almost always guaranteed phishing emails. Sending a phishing email with a malicious link or something on there, that was the way to go. We're seeing a high increase now on web application security. There are a lot of people that were relying on the traditional Office 365, Exchange, Gmail, G Suite security, and realizing that wasn't enough. So they'd go with a third-party email security vendor, and that's been really an uptake and progress for a lot of companies finally realizing they needed more than just the bare minimum for email security. knowing that that's the number one vector to get compromised. People are finally learning that. That's great. And now I think the next big milestone is going to be web application security. What services are you guys running? Any web server, any access from the cloud that's being accessed, is potentially an indoor access to your network. It's potentially access to PCI information, HIPAA if you're in the medical industry. Different compliance and regulatory requirements require specific security put behind that. And maybe that wasn't a big deal because your shop was only had a 10 to 12% on cloud e-commerce presence, and the other 95-85% of your business was on site, on-prem. People were coming in store to purchase. People were going into the office for your medical visits. People were going to places just to walk around and pick up a soda or a candy bar. Now that's all turned around. Everything's being delivered. Everything's online. Medical visits are virtual. Any appointments, anything that you're doing, if it can be done virtual, it's being done virtual. And that's great for the spread of the pandemic, the coronavirus and whatnot. But now you've got to look at, as a security, as an IT staff, when you had a 5% of your 10% of your mind was worrying about the cloud piece because everything was on-prem, and have to completely shift that mindset and going into a public cloud or your own private cloud or virtual or however the case is. How is that where's that protection at? How is that being protected? How are you ensuring that little piece of that server that you were using doesn't get overrun now? Is it over? I've had personally, me and Teresa had some customers here in Southern California where they open up their food app so you can download. You can actually go on your little phone and you can download and purchase food off of an app. That was right before COVID-19 hit. That was just the services people weren't. They were just doing all the Uber Eats and everything. They just go on the cloud and they do that. But then they started having personal. Okay, I'm not going to pay this third party to come pick it up. I want to do it on my own site, for myself. I want to have my own web service so people can order, walk in and pay, and wait at the curb and call and say I'm at the curb and come pick up. That was all starting before COVID-19. But even before COVID-19, the fact is we had several customers that started that, and the first week after release, their network went down. Their services shut down because they were overrun. They weren't ready to hold. They weren't ready to do that jump where they have enough server access in the cloud to maintain 500 customers per minute, and that was way more than enough prior to COVID-19. Now they've got 5,000 a minute trying to access their services. And how do they expand that? How do they secure that? How do they know that 2-3 years ago I'd be able to go into a shop and onto a website and I can just alter a couple little codes, and this $3,000 TV that I wanted to purchase, I have it shipped to me for $30, and no one will know the difference because all they're looking for is purchase, approved, send, address, ship. They didn't see how much was purchased, how much was paid for. Most big companies already resolved that, but a lot of small companies are still vulnerable to attacks like that. The HIPAA. If you're a medical little shop in a facility and you're hosting online virtual health checkups, or just whenever they call and say, are you sick? What's your problem? And then, okay, we're going to send you a video link and you're talking to your doctor. How secure is that? What's happening on that person's computer that's accessing that and monitoring and recording that? And if that's compromised, is that server that you're using to host that virtual medical exam, does that server also have access to everyone else's HIPAA information, all their other personal information? Just because it compromised that video, that virtual link, what is in the back end of that server? What else can you touch? So there's a lot of things you got to, you have to take into consideration talking about web application security. And unfortunately, it takes something like this pandemic to open people's eyes, and it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per exploit that could have been prevented for a lot less. You have anything, Evan?
Absolutely. Just to add on to that, I mean, the brunch or the breakfast I ordered on SquareSite. I went and picked it up, and it's a great experience, but the adjustment for businesses in Hawaii wasn't straightforward. The things that we absolutely see, internal and customer facing, is doing the basics, understanding what you have, having an inventory of, in this case specifically, what web services do you have? I can think of 16 or 18 that just my organization uses, and I don't have to get approval. I just need my company credit card, and suddenly there we go. We've expanded the footprint of where our data is, and where our risk has been spread out with from our organization, and just starting to understand as a business, where is all your data and what services are you getting is where I would start. Absolutely, doing the basics of securing with passwords, being aware of how APIs are protected, and having web application firewalls and all that stuff are great steps. But I see everybody needing to just understand who bought what and what are we using and how far out there is it. That's absolutely where I'd start. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, and to add a little bit to that, one thing I forgot to mention was it's not just your web server you're hosting, but cloud in general. How many of your customers have corporate accounts to your corporate Dropbox, your corporate OneDrive, your corporate Salesforce, different companies? If they have a username and password, are you doing two-factor authentication? Are you doing any type of anything else to monitor? Are you ensuring that when Pete and Evan are logging in from Hawaii and Southern California, we also don't have 10 other connections coming from North Korea? That's
Right.
Paul, not us. How do you monitor the access to and from asset management, user management to your cloud services? And that's just it's web application security, but it would be more probably appropriate to be called cloud security or cloud services security or something.
And CASB and all that
yep.
stuff. Yep.
All right, now looking at the bigger picture, again, everything we're talking about, almost everybody on this call today, everyone watching this webinar, has at least one or two regulatory compliances that they have to stand by, whether it be mandated by your CEO or mandated by the city, state, or government, or even bigger than that. So if you take any type of payments, you got PCI. If you do anything with medical, you have HIPAA. If you have any European employees, you got GDPR. You got all these different services that you have to monitor. And I'll let Evan got some more actual stuff that matters to you guys in Hawaii. I mean, as far as things that you've seen, but this is where this is just a very basic level of the top 10, top 15 compliance requirements. And I'm sure everybody on this call is familiar with at least one or two of these, if not all of them.
Yeah, just to add to that, things that we're involved with on the day-to-day basis is assisting with HIPAA and PCI, specifically assisting with making sure that self-reporting for PCI audits and making sure we're passing PCI audits. That becomes a monthly or quarterly vulnerability review. And then specifically, we've made a huge push with CIS hardening or CIS control hardening, which is turning into a requirement for a lot of government agencies. So, thank you.
Yeah. All right, now pieces of the puzzle. Everything, the digital transformation that everyone was expecting. I mean, almost every one of my customers that I've worked with over the last couple of years have been leading up to the end of 2019. 2020 was the year. Digital transformation. How are we going to do this? How do we put it all together? Be successful, seamless, streamline it, don't affect our employees, and more importantly, our customers. And that was the conversation. It just all went down the drain. COVID-19 came out. It doesn't matter where you're at in your, time out. Just go out and digitally transform yourselves and separate all your security and just drop everything and go. We have to pick up those pieces now. Those pieces all have to come together. We need to figure out as an industry, as a humankind, where are we at? You gotta look at yourself, be honest about it. It's not time to hide your vulnerabilities, your old software, your old services that you were trying to keep keep maintained and working because you didn't want to put it out there that things weren't working or you didn't have what you needed, the resources. It's the time to find out all those pieces, be honest with yourself, come back to the drawing board, or virtual drawing board more than likely, and explain, come together with a picture of how it's going to work. And there's no more, well, security wants this and infrastructure wants this and sysadmins want this and the database administrators want this. No, it's a whole holistic view of how to get that working. It's a time to start over and stop bolting these pieces to work together. Make them work together right now. Put all that puzzle together from the ground up and figure out how to get your business is back running where they should be with everything together, everyone at the same table. Easier said than done. I'm not at your seat. I'm not on your team, sitting there and having to fight with different organizations. But that's where it needs to be. That's where everyone needs to stop arguing about. Well, we have to do this for security, and because of security, you can't do these other pieces. No, you can. You just got to do it smartly. You got to just follow that pattern.
So to kind of wrap this up together, there's no one magic bullet for security, especially in the situation we're in today, right? And so one of the things that we're not going to be able to talk through in the next 15 minutes we have in this presentation is to find a perfectly tailored solution for each of you. So what we are offering is there's going to be a sign-up form for a free security consultation that you should be able to sign up for. There it goes. So if you're interested, we would love to I think it's a 1-hour consultation to talk through specifically what your concerns are, what you know, and what you need help with. We'd love to provide our input on what we think we can do to help you be more secure. And I guess I'm running the slides now. All right. So that brings us to the Q&A section. I have one question right now I wanted to touch on. The question, I guess I publish it here, is from Uni. Let's see here. Uni Ann, she said, is using Nmap to scan your own network is the best security practice to do, or is that a security risk? So no, that's it. I think anybody that's exploring their home network to understand what's there. What I like to tell people is you have to know normal to find evil. I didn't make that up. I totally stole that from somewhere. But that it's just like you sit in your car and if it rattles a little, right? You're like, oh, something's off, something's weird, and oh, the tire pressure is low, or I'm missing a wheel, right? You know those things because you know what normal looks like. So is it good? Sure. Am I going to advise every one of my customers to teach their end users to use Nmap to scan their home networks? Probably not, because you need a certain level of knowledge to interpret that data. So there's solutions in between all around there that could, you could end up, putting devices that automatically scan everybody's home network. There's a whole bunch of privacy concerns that would probably come into play with that, right? So there's a wide range of solutions to this problem. Understanding what you expect on your network isn't a bad start if you have the understanding to interpret that. So great question. There's not a perfect answer for it, but that approach isn't a bad one. And I encourage everybody, if you don't know what Nmap is, it's a network mapping and scanning tool. You can use it to quickly say, hey, I'm in my IP address. I want to, for this IP address group, it's like 192.168.0.1 is usually the common one. Show me what's all there. And using a bunch of different techniques, it's going to say, oh, I think this is a printer. I think this is a Windows PC, all that kind of stuff. So great question. I could talk about it for hours, and I'm happy to. Afterwards, if there are follow-up questions, I'm happy to in detail discuss that. But that's, I think, as far as I can go right now. I've got anybody. Pete, did anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that knowing your network is that you don't know what's wrong if you don't know what normal is. You don't know if it's malicious. Just because there's 500 requests to hit port 21, is that malicious? Maybe. But, if you don't know what a day-to-day traffic on your network is, you're never going to know what looks bad. That being said, any of the monitoring, if you use Nmap, depending where you get it from, or if you use different tools, absolutely. Just don't go to Google and type in free network monitoring tools and then click the first one that comes up and download it. Make sure it's coming from a legitimate website. You do a little bit of, read the rates. And you see the ratings, the conversations, go to Reddit and look it up, whatever blog or post you comfortable with, security vendor, whatever, site, go to the different sans.org, have whatever you want to go to. I'm not saying anyone specific, but if you go out there, do your research, make sure it's not the first link that you find, and make sure the link doesn't have 1,500 characters at the end taking you to some place that you don't know where you're going, because you're never going to get out of that hole. You click that link and you might as well just turn your computer off and find another job.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Pete. So the next question I have up here is from Roche. She asks, what kind of security protection do you recommend for desktops and mobile devices for my business? Again, great question. Not a very simple answer. What I would say is it depends, and it depends a lot on the size of your business and the level of security that you need for it. Getting back to that hot dog stand with the castle, which is a really weird example. I'm sad I made up now, but that's absolutely it. So for a very small business, there might be an endpoint solution that's just what we call not managed. It's just like you're familiar with, like a McAfee or an F-Secure or something like that that is just installed and it just does its job. I mean, Windows Defender sitting on my home computer does its job. But what it doesn't do, it inform my the security admin for my organization that my system is patched, updated, and secure, and not doing weird stuff like phoning home to North Korea, like Pete was talking about. So that would be a managed endpoint protection solution, which there are several. And what I would suggest as part of that security consultation, we would be able to get a good idea of the level of security you're looking for, or the level of visibility you're looking for, and what the right product fits you. I know that's kind of a vague answer, but it very much depends. It's like, I need a truck. Do I need an F-350 or do I need a Toyota Tacoma? It depends.
Yeah,
Pete,
I'd like to add.
anything?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that too. That I think that it is definitely. You need to know what you're looking for, what requirements you have for your business, and then it really is how are you going to use it. Are you going to you can purchase the biggest, baddest truck. You know, like Evan said, biggest, baddest truck, 4-wheel drive. 20-inch monster truck tires and a 6-inch lift. But if it's a stick shift and you don't even know how to drive stick shift, it's sitting in your parking lot looking cool. It's not. You're not able to use it, right? So it's the same thing. We had a customer, one of my peers had a customer that had almost everything in their network was Fortinet, Fortinet endpoint security client, Fortinet gate firewalls, Fortinet access points, Fortinet email security, and they were ransomware, and they were mad. And when they did an forensic analysis, they went in, they had their security auditors come in, the cybersecurity insurance auditors come in, they went through and looked at it, and they said, you have all these tools and none of the security is turned on. You have no security turned on these. You're not monitoring them, and the alerts that were there have been on your system for 6 months. They didn't get paid. Their insurance did not pay them. They weren't doing their job. So it doesn't matter what product you have if you don't use it correctly. So part of that, having that consult with someone like CBTS Hawaii Telcom and having Evan come out or somebody from his team, find out what your pain points are, what you're able to actually accomplish, what you need to accomplish, and how you're going to get there. He can work you through either whether it be the endpoint security consumer based or if it's the managed piece of it. So really, yeah, it's all products. I say all products aren't made equal, but they can be made equal if you don't turn on all the features.
Thanks, Pete. And to add to that, I have been lightly reminded to mention that we are launching a Hawaiian Tel Safeguard business, which is an endpoint solution specifically targeted at small businesses. That'll be happening in February. More details to come there. Moving on, I now have multiple questions. I apologize, folks, if we're not able to get to them all. We will follow up afterwards. I've got one here from Ricky. He says, since the home equipment is owned by the employee, what is the best practice to secure employee home hardware or home network? Can you share best practices? And it just went to the published area. So, can we share a best practice document? Again, that comes into a very much, it depends. The best practice I would just very quickly touch on is making sure they're controlling their security. I could go very deep and say, like, on my home network, I separate all of my stuff out. My IoT stuff is on one VLAN and my wireless is on one VLAN. I have a guest network and all that. That's a very long answer for a complicated question. But doing the basics of patching, passwords, and making sure that all the third-party stuff is getting updated. If you have an endpoint solution, or when I'm saying that, I'm saying a computer or a laptop. If you have a solution that's monitoring your users' stuff and says, hey, their Flash has been out of date and you shouldn't be using Flash, or Chrome is behind by 5 versions, those are the kind of things I would start with. Do the basics, do them well. And then you can branch out from there. It's the same message we've been sharing before COVID when it comes to businesses. Do the basics, and then it's just like running from a bear. You're not the guy that's the slowest, right? Great question. Got a couple more here we should be able to get to. Let's see here. Sorry. Kaleo says, are there any additional tools you'd recommend having with endpoint security, especially for emails and web applications? Absolutely. Pete kind of talked on that a little bit earlier. There's web access firewalls. There's email filtering services. There are additional security services that can be bolted on top of Office 365. That really falls into the discussion of what's your current situation, how big is your business, and what level of risk are you looking to offset. I know I keep going very vague on that. I don't want to recommend everybody goes and gets Proofpoint when in fact their business doesn't actually meet that specifically. Proofpoint's a wonderful product. I just don't think it fits every market segment and every risk profile. All right, Pete, did you have anything to add to that one?
No, I think absolutely. The email security, web application security is top of mind these days. People have, I talked to everyone in the industry, in the sales industry, the security industry, saying, "Oh my God, everyone's going home. No one's going to buy anything. It's going to, business is going to go bad." And in my mind, I'm thinking, no. Instead of having to change everyone's passwords and go plug somebody's keyboard in because they disconnected the keyboard, they're going to have time to actually think about security. They're going to have to actually having questions and presenting to their leadership. Hey, what about this? What about that? And email and web application security have been the number one topic over the last 4 to 5 months for us, big time. And it is, again, I'm not recommending anything, but it's one of those things. Do some research, talk to somebody within CBTS or whatever whatever group you subscribe to, see what's being used, see the recommendations. But that's something that if you don't have anything outside of the basic monitoring tools of your email solution or your web server, you're going to get hacked. You're going to get owned. You're going to be compromised.
Thank you. We've got just a few more minutes left, and there was one more question that came up, but I'm terrible at this new presentation tool. The question was about SACE, or secure access. What that really gets into is the question of setting up what we call zero trust architecture. It's a new buzzword that's not actually that new. It's more like 15 years old, but it's getting there today. And it was before COVID, becoming like the next step that people were going to take to secure their networks. It's no more perimeter. It's no more layers of security. It's you don't trust anything and only the authorized things talk to each other. Absolutely something worth talking about. Absolutely something worth striving towards as a business, but from the crawl, walk, run method, doing the basics. What I see in Hawaii today, over the last few years, we're all struggling because things are moving so quickly. Let's focus on the basics. And then once you feel like that's bulletproof, then absolutely strive towards a zero access or zero trust architecture. Okay, great question.
I think real quick, 10 seconds. Anyone asking about if we could poll everyone on this call to explain to me what SD-WAN was, and then explain to me what SASE was, or SAS, or SASE, however you want to say it.
Yeah,
we're going to have 120 different answers. So those conversations, if you're looking at that technology, contact CBTS and have that conversation. That's a one-on-one conversation that to address your specific needs.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. I think we've gotten to all the Q&A questions that I had here. If I missed or didn't fully answer yours, please follow up. We're going to have the email address at the end here. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So that was kind of talking about what I've touched on a little bit. Please sign up for a free 1-hour security consultation consult. Please download the report that's provided by our friends at Fortinet here. And yes, if you have questions, please email them in. I would love to answer them and have a full team that's happy to answer those questions as well. And then the way this gets better, the way we get better is you take the survey and let us know how we've done, right? All right. And then finally, almost there. Now I'm going to go over here to my chat and then let everybody know who the lucky drawing winners were. Once I find, aha. Okay, so drum roll, please. Winner of our lucky draw are Jamie Chen and Uni Ann. Congratulations, everybody. Yeah.
Yay!
That was awesome. We'll be in touch to get your information. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe and have a successful 2021.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. We really, really appreciate it. And again, please follow up if you have questions. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.